Lately, life has been speaking to you through symptoms, not explanations. You wake up already tired, even when you slept long enough. Your body goes through the motions, work, family, responsibilities, but your inner world feels heavy, like it's carrying something unnamed. You haven't collapsed, you haven't failed, but you are worn in a way rest alone hasn't fixed. At work, the pressure feels sharper. Tasks stack up faster than your motivation. You notice yourself staring at screens longer, rereading the same message, feeling strangely disconnected from outcomes that used to matter more. It's not laziness, it's fatigue at a deeper level, the kind that coffee can't touch. The kind that comes from giving too much of yourself for too long without alignment. At home, you may still show up, still provide, still listen, but your patience is thinner. Small comments sting more than they should. Silence feels heavier. Even love can feel like effort instead of flow. You don't want to withdraw, yet you crave space. You don't want to complain, yet something inside you is asking to be acknowledged. At night, your body finally slows down, but your mind doesn't. Thoughts replay. Questions surface. Why does everything feel so loud inside? Why am I restless even when nothing is wrong? You try to distract yourself, scroll a little longer, push the feeling away, but it returns, steady and persistent. Steady. This is not burnout alone. Burnout explains exhaustion, but not the inner pull towards something quieter, truer, deeper. What you're feeling is weariness mixed with invitation. Here is a very ordinary situation that reveals it clearly. You finally get a free moment, no urgent messages, no one needing you, and instead of relief, you feel exposed. As if stillness itself is confronting you. That moment tells the truth. You're not just tired of doing, you're tired of carrying. And this is exactly where the voice of Jesus speaks, not with pressure, not with demand, but with permission. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 11, verse 28, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Notice what he names first: weary and burdened. Not sinful, not weak, not behind, just tired, weighted, human. This is not a rebuke. It's an invitation to stop pretending you can carry everything alone. Rest here does not mean escape. It means realignment. It means laying down invisible loads you were never meant to hold: expectations, performance, constant availability, silent comparison. It means admitting that your soul needs more than productivity. It needs care. There is hope in this moment, and it is very practical. Hope looks like clarity slowly returning once you stop forcing answers. It looks like peace beginning to replace mental noise. It looks like your work becoming lighter, not because there's less to do, but because you're no longer dragging your soul behind your schedule. It looks like relationships softening when you stop operating from depletion. Imagine waking up without that tightness in your chest. Imagine making decisions without constant second-guessing. Imagine feeling present again at work, at the table, in your own thoughts. This kind of rest doesn't erase responsibility. It restores strength to carry it well. But rest must be chosen. The invitation is open, but it is not automatic. This is why this moment matters. Not because something bad is about to happen, but because continuing as you are will quietly cost you more than you realize. Weariness unattended becomes numbness. Burdens unshared become walls. So let me ask you directly, without drama, what burden have you been normalizing that is slowly draining the life out of you? If this spoke to where you are right now, take a second to support this message, like it, share it with someone who's been carrying too much in silence, and subscribe so you stay connected as the next steps unfold. And at the end of this section, If your soul truly needs rest, not escape, not distraction, but real rest, comment 88 as a quiet acknowledgement. You don't need to solve everything tonight. You only need to stop running from what your soul has been signaling. Awareness is already a form of healing. The moment you slow down enough to listen, pressure begins to loosen, and direction quietly starts forming. This season is not asking for perfection, only honesty. If you can admit you're tired, you're already closer to renewal than you think. Rest is not the reward at the end. It is the doorway you're standing in right now that the inner noise has been acknowledged. The next question rises naturally. Where is this mark coming from? And what does it require of you, not in a mystical sense detached from life, but in a grounded way that touches your work, your money, your relationships, and your daily decisions? A mark, in this context, is not a title. It is a responsibility that shows up as conscience, consistency, and restraint when no one is watching. The first practical indicator is origin. Marks that come from ego demand attention. Marks that come from God demand alignment. One pushes you to prove yourself. The other pulls you toward integrity. Look closely at what this inner pressure is producing. Is it pushing you to be seen or pulling you to be steady? Is it making you impatient with others or more aware of your own reactions? True marking does not inflate you. It grounds you. In daily life, this shows up clearly at work. You may notice you can no longer cut corners without inner resistance. Small dishonesties padding numbers, exaggerating progress, staying silent when something is wrong now weigh heavier than before. That weight is not condemnation, it is calibration. You are being trained to carry responsibility without applause. The second indicator is acceptance of responsibility. Being marked does not excuse you from ordinary duties, it sharpens how you carry them. You still show up on time. You still honor commitments. You still do your job well, even when it feels unnoticed. The difference is that you stop seeing responsibility as a burden and start seeing it as stewardship. Consider a simple situation: managing finances. You may feel prompted to become more disciplined, not out of fear, but out of respect. Impulse spending loses its appeal. Debt feels heavier, not because you're shamed, but because you're becoming more intentional. Responsibility here is not about restriction, it's about trustworthiness. You're learning to handle small things well. Family life reveals this marking too. You may feel less drawn to winning arguments and more drawn to preserving peace, not silence wisdom. You choose when to speak and when to let things pass. You begin to recognize that not every truth needs to be delivered immediately, and not every reaction deserves expression. This is not weakness. This is strength under control. The third indicator is humility. Marks that come from God always grow downward before they grow outward. You become more aware of what you don't know. You listen more carefully. You correct yourself faster. You stop assuming motives and start asking better questions. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking less about yourself. This humility protects you in environments that reward pride. At work, when recognition passes you by, you don't collapse or compete. You remain consistent. When others fail, you resist the urge to elevate yourself by comparison. You understand that steadiness outlasts spotlight. Faithfulness is the final measure. Faithfulness is quiet, repetitive, and often boring. It looks like doing the right thing again today because you did it yesterday, not because it feels special, but because it is right. It is answering emails with integrity. It is keeping promises. It is showing up emotionally even when you're tired. This kind of faithfulness is tested most when no immediate outcome follows. when prayers seem unanswered, when progress feels slow, when obedience doesn't produce instant relief. Marks from God deepen here, not disappear. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 25, verse 9. He guides the humble in what is right and teaches them his way. Guidance is promised not to the loudest, fastest, or most confident, but to the humble. Teaching comes after humility is practiced. This is why patience is part of the mark. You are not rushing ahead of instruction. You are being shaped as you walk. Hope in this section is not abstract. Hope looks like stability forming quietly. It looks like trust increasing both from others toward you and within you toward God. It looks like fewer regrets because your decisions are slower and wiser. Over time, people begin to rely on you not because you demand authority, but because you carry weight well. Accepting this mark does not mean your life becomes dramatic. It becomes reliable. And reliability, over time, opens doors drama never could. So you continue. You stay humble. You stay faithful. You let responsibility refine you rather than harden you. This is how the mark reveals its source, not through words, but through a life that can be trusted. There is a quiet danger that almost never looks like rebellion. It doesn't arrive as chaos or collapse. It sounds reasonable, calm, mature. It says, not now. Not now because you're tired. Not now because things are complicated. Not now because the timing doesn't feel perfect yet. This is the subtle cost of delay, and it shapes lives more than loud mistakes ever do. Delay often disguises itself as wisdom. You convince yourself you're waiting for clarity, but deep down, you already know what needs attention. You're not confused, you're hesitant. And hesitation, prolonged, slowly trains the heart to tolerate misalignment. In daily life, this shows up everywhere. At work, you sense that something needs to change: a conversation with leadership, a boundary with workload, a decision about direction. You don't refuse it. You just keep postponing it. Weeks pass. The discomfort becomes familiar. You adapt instead of addressing it. Over time, what once felt wrong starts to feel normal. Financially, delay has a similar pattern. You know adjustments are needed: spending habits, saving discipline, unresolved obligations. You tell yourself you'll start next month, after this season passes. But seasons rarely pass on their own. They require response. Delay doesn't freeze consequences, it slowly compounds them. In relationships, the cost becomes emotional. You feel prompted to speak honestly, to reconcile, or to set a healthy limit, but silence feels easier than discomfort. So you wait. Distance grows quietly. Misunderstandings solidify. What could have been healed early becomes heavier later. This is how delay works. It doesn't destroy suddenly, it erodes gradually. Spiritually, delay is especially dangerous because it dulls sensitivity. The first time you postpone a conviction, it feels uncomfortable. The fifth time, it feels manageable. Eventually, what once stirred urgency barely registers. Not because God stopped speaking, but because responsiveness weakened. Here is a common, ordinary moment where this happens. You sense the need to change a small habit: how you start your mornings, how much noise you allow into your mind, how little space you give to stillness. You agree internally. You don't act externally. Days pass, the sense fades, life continues. Nothing dramatic happens. And yet, something important was missed. This is why timing matters. The Apostle Paul reminds us in his second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 6, verse 2, I tell you, now is the time of God's favor, now is the day of salvation. The word now appears twice for a reason. Favor is not only about blessing, it's about timing. Salvation here is not only rescue from ruin, it is rescue from delay. The emphasis is not on fear, but on availability. A window is open, a moment is active. Response matters. But here is the hope embedded in this warning: if you can still recognize delay, it has not won. Awareness means the door is still open. Conviction means access has not been revoked. You are not being judged, you are being invited to act while the invitation still carries weight. Hope looks very practical here. It looks like choosing movement over perfection. It looks like taking one step before everything feels clear, making the call, sending the message, setting the boundary, adjusting the habit, acting while clarity is present, not after it fades. When you respond promptly, something shifts internally. The mental pressure eases, the inner division quiets. Energy returns not because circumstances instantly change, but because resistance ends. Alignment restores strength faster than rest ever could. Imagine how different the next season could feel if you stopped postponing the one decision that keeps resurfacing. Imagine fewer internal debates, more peace, more momentum. Not dramatic breakthroughs, but steady forward movement. Delay keeps you fragmented, knowing one thing, doing another. Response brings wholeness. This section is not meant to frighten you. It's meant to sharpen your sense of timing. You are not being rushed into panic. You are being called out of postponement. Sensitivity is a gift, but it must be honored while it's active. So let this land plainly: what action keeps returning to your mind because it hasn't been taken yet? That repetition is not accidental. It is mercy. To mark this moment of understanding, write this short phrase in the comments: I respond now. This is not a promise of perfection. It is a declaration of timing. It means you recognize that delay has a cost, and responsiveness has power. You are choosing movement over postponement, obedience over comfort, alignment over familiarity. Moments pass, windows shift. But response, when it happens in time, changes everything. This phrase means you are choosing timing over hesitation. It says you will no longer wait for perfect conditions to obey a clear nudge. Responding now keeps your heart sensitive, your direction clear, and the door of favor open. February 1st does not arrive with thunder. It comes quietly, like the first light slipping through a curtain before the city wakes up. Nothing outside may look different, yet inside you sense it clearly. This is a day of orientation, not acceleration, not pressure. Orientation, a day that asks one simple question: where are you facing? By now, you've already felt the cost of delay and the weight of responsibility. February 1st is not here to accuse you of the past. It is here to steady you in the present. This day does not demand a leap. It invites a turn, a subtle but decisive shift of posture. In everyday life, this looks surprisingly ordinary. You wake up and resist the urge to drown your mind in noise. You let silence stay a little longer. You choose intention over autopilot. You don't solve your whole future today, but you stop betraying what you already know to be right. At work, February 1st shows up as clarity. You approach tasks without resentment. You speak more carefully, not to impress, but to be accurate. You stop performing for approval and start acting from integrity. Nothing about your title may change, yet your authority quietly increases because you are no longer divided inside. In finances, this day doesn't promise sudden breakthroughs. It offers honesty. You look directly at numbers instead of avoiding them. You stop justifying habits that drain you. Peace returns not because there is more, but because there is alignment. In family and relationships, February 1st feels gentle but firm. You listen instead of preparing your defense. You choose timing over impulse. You may feel prompted to apologize, to forgive, or to release a grudge you've carried so long it felt normal. Alignment here feels like relief. This day is not loud, it is decisive in stillness. There is a moment many people experience on days like this. You realize no one is forcing you. No threat, no ultimatum. And somehow, that makes the choice heavier and more beautiful. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 6, verse 33, "Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." Seek first does not mean do more. It means face correctly. What you orient toward shapes everything that follows. When the inner compass is aligned, movement becomes lighter. Decisions become cleaner. Hope in February 1 is practical. It looks like simplicity returning. It feels like quieter thoughts. You sense that you are supported from within instead of driven from behind. Imagine moving through your day without that background tension. Responsibilities still exist, but they no longer scrape against your soul. You feel present, grounded, awake. February 1st carries a quiet invitation, not spoken, felt, an invitation to remain attentive. Growth does not happen in isolation. It happens in proximity to truth, to light, to reminders of who you are becoming. Some choose to stay connected, not out of obligation, but resonance. When something helps you breathe more freely, you naturally return to it. Staying connected is like keeping a compass in your pocket while crossing unfamiliar ground. You don't stare at it constantly, but you're grateful it's there when the path bends. Others feel moved to pass this moment along. Sharing is like lighting a torch from another flame. The original fire doesn't diminish. It simply makes the road safer for someone behind you. And some choose continuity. Subscribing, remaining near is like planting yourself where water is steady. Roots don't deepen through one powerful rain, but through returning to the same source again and again. None of these are commands. They are responses, voluntary, beautiful. February 1st sets tone, not through intensity, but through intention. It does not ask you to reinvent yourself. It asks you to stand where you already are, but stand aligned. So move slowly today. Let your yes be clean. Let your no be calm and firm. This is not the beginning of noise. It is the beginning of clarity. February 1st does not demand proof. It invites you to seek first and trust that the rest will follow. Let this remain gentle, not forced. If these words helped, carry them forward. If only one line stayed with you, keep that. What truly matters will continue working quietly, long after the sound fades and the day moves on. There is an ancient moment recorded in Scripture that carries the weight of this day with startling precision. An old man named Simeon had waited his entire life for one promise. Not success, not comfort. One promise only, that he would not die before seeing the Messiah. Day after day, year after year, nothing outward changed. Yet he kept showing up, faithful in obscurity, attentive in silence. Then one ordinary day, Mary and Joseph walked into the temple carrying an infant. No crown, no announcement, no sign of power, just a child wrapped in simplicity. And Simeon knew immediately. He took the baby in his arms, blessed God, and then spoke words that cut through generations. As it is written in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 2, verse 34. This child is destined to cause the falling and rising of many in Israel, and to be a sign that will be opposed. The Messiah was not introduced as a comfort to everyone. He was revealed as a divider. Not because he sought conflict, but because truth always exposes position. Some would rise by receiving him, others would fall by resisting him. Neutral ground would disappear. February 2 carries that same weight. This is the day of division, not dramatic, not violent but decisive. Not between good and evil in obvious forms, but between alignment and resistance, between obedience and delay, between comfort and calling. In daily life, division rarely looks spiritual, it looks practical. At work, it may show up as a moment where integrity costs you something. You realize that staying silent will keep you safe, but speaking truth will cost favor. February 2 asks you which one shapes your future. The division is internal before it's external. Financially, this day may confront habits you've normalized. Spending to soothe stress, avoiding responsibility because it feels heavy. You feel the divide clearly. One path maintains comfort now, the other builds stability later. You cannot walk both. In relationships, February 2 can feel sharp. You sense the need to set a boundary, speak honestly, or step back from a dynamic that keeps pulling you away from who you're becoming. Not everyone will understand. Simeon's words remind us truth is often opposed before it is honored. This is where many people hesitate. They want peace without division, growth without tension. But Simeon's prophecy makes something clear. Rising and falling are part of the same moment. The same truth that lifts one person will offend another. The same choice that frees you may distance you from familiarity. Here is a very real scenario. You decide to change your pace, your priorities, your availability. Suddenly people notice. Some respect it, others resist it. You haven't attacked anyone. You've simply aligned, and alignment exposes difference. This can feel lonely, but hope enters here not as applause, but as clarity. When division clarifies, confusion ends. You stop trying to please incompatible expectations. You stop negotiating with convictions. You become lighter because you're no longer carrying divided loyalties. February 2 teaches you this: not everyone who walked with you can walk where you're going. That is not rejection, that is direction. Simeon did not chase approval. He spoke truth while holding promise in his arms. And then, quietly, his assignment was complete. Some seasons are like that. You are not meant to convince everyone, only to be faithful to what you recognize. Hope looks like strength returning after a difficult decision. It looks like peace replacing people-pleasing. It looks like clarity settling in once you stop trying to stand in two places at once. You may lose certain affirmations, but you gain alignment. You may feel misunderstood, but you gain authority. You may feel divided from old patterns, but you rise into stability. February 2 does not ask you to fight anyone. It asks you to choose your side internally. The division Simeon spoke of is not about groups, it's about hearts, yours included. Will you resist what disrupts your comfort, or receive what reshapes your future? This is not condemnation, this is confirmation. If you feel the tension, it means the moment matters. So let me ask you directly, where have you been trying to keep peace at the cost of truth? To mark this crossroads, not loudly, but intentionally, write this number in the comments. Type 21. This number represents decision, not drama. Decision. It says, I recognize the divide, and I choose alignment over avoidance. You are not choosing conflict. You are choosing clarity. February sun will not linger. Like Simeon's moment, it appears briefly, speaks clearly, and moves on. Those who recognize it rise with it. Those who resist it feel the distance later. The child in Simeon's arms was small, but the choice was massive. And so is yours. February 3 is not loud, and it is not emotional. It does not arrive with warnings or countdowns. It arrives with finality. Not the finality of endings, but the finality of decisions becoming structure. This is the day where what you have chosen quietly begins to solidify. By now, you have already turned inward, realigned, and faced division. February 3rd is different. It does not ask what you feel. It reflects what you have done. This is the day where patterns stop being flexible and begin to harden into direction. In everyday life, this is easy to miss. At work, February 3rd may feel like a shift in how others respond to you. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but you notice trust forming or fading. Responsibilities are either given or withheld. Your consistency or lack of it has begun to speak louder than your intentions. Authority doesn't arrive with announcements. It settles where reliability has proven itself. In finances, this day reveals momentum. Habits you corrected begin to stabilize you. Habits you postponed begin to strain you. There is no judgment in this, only cause and effect. February 3rd does not punish, it confirms. In relationships, this day can feel sobering. Certain connections feel stronger, steadier, safer. Others feel more distant, not because you pushed them away, but because alignment has quietly reshaped proximity. What once required effort now flows. What once felt natural now feels heavy. This is not loss, this is sorting. February 3rd is often misunderstood because it lacks emotion. People expect sealing moments to feel dramatic, but sealing is usually calm. It is the feeling of something clicking into place, not with excitement, but with weight. This is where many people realize something important. God is less interested in your intensity than your consistency. Passion flickers. Faithfulness forms structure. Here is a simple example. Think of how trust is built in real life. No one hands you responsibility because of one good day. They do it after observing you over time. February 3rd works the same way. What you repeated is spoken. Scripture captures this principle with clarity. According to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 20, verse 7. The righteous lead blameless lives. Blessed are their children after them. Notice the focus is not on a single act, but on a way of living. Blameless here does not mean perfect. It means integrated. The inner life and outer actions match, and the result is impact that extends beyond the individual. This is the hope of February 3rd. Hope here does not look like sudden change. It looks like stability, like waking up without inner arguments, like knowing what you will say yes to and what you will refuse before pressure arrives, like carrying peace that does not depend on circumstances. February 3rd is the day where confusion fades, not because everything is answered, but because your direction is settled. You may still have questions, you may still face challenges, but you are no longer drifting. There is also a warning here, but it is quiet. What you did not choose has also begun to choose for you. Habits left untouched have continued their work. Boundaries avoided have remained absent. February 3rd does not threaten you with loss, it simply shows you reality. And yet, even here, hope remains. Because sealing does not mean immobility, it means trajectory. Direction can still be corrected, but it requires intention, not delay. This is why February 3rd feels weighty. Not because doors slam, but because paths become clearer. You may sense a new seriousness settling into you. Less tolerance for distraction, less appetite for noise, more desire for depth. This is not heaviness, it is gravity. Gravity is what allows things to orbit instead of scatter. In practical terms, February 3rd often produces resolve. You don't argue with yourself as much. You don't explain yourself as often. You simply act from clarity. Others feel it even if they can't name it. This day also teaches you patience. Once something is sealed, you no longer rush. You understand that growth now happens through time and faithfulness, not urgency. You stop trying to force outcomes. You focus on tending what has been entrusted. February 3rd is not the end of the journey. It is the end of indecision. From this day forward, what you have chosen begins to choose back. Peace reinforces peace. Integrity reinforces authority. Faithfulness reinforces trust. This is how lives are built, not through moments of intensity, but through days like this. Quiet, firm, settled. You may not remember February 3rd emotionally, but months from now you will recognize its effects. In the stability you carry, in the clarity you walk with, in the doors that open because you became someone who could be trusted with what's behind them. February 3rd does not celebrate you, it establishes you. And establishment, though quiet, is powerful. After the days pass, something settles into place. Not with celebration, not with noise, but with a quiet certainty that life is no longer moving in circles. You may still wake up to the same responsibilities, the same streets, the same faces, but inside, the constant pull to second-guess yourself has weakened. You are no longer waiting for permission. You are walking. This is the aftermath of alignment. You notice it first in how you respond. Situations that once stirred anxiety now meet steadiness. Delays no longer feel like threats. Silence no longer feels empty. You've learned how to stand without scrambling for reassurance. That alone changes everything. In work, you are calmer. You don't rush to prove your worth. You do what needs to be done with care, and then you release the outcome. Authority begins to gather around you not because you demanded it, but because consistency always attracts trust. Even when doors take time to open, you no longer panic outside them. In finances, you may still be in progress, but you are no longer drifting. There is direction now. Your choices feel intentional instead of reactive. You spend with awareness. You plan with patience. You stop escaping pressure and start managing it. Dignity replaces fear. In relationships, the difference is unmistakable. Some people are no longer present, and the absence no longer hurts the way it once did. Other connections deepen naturally. Conversations feel more honest. You are less available for confusion and more present for truth. You are not surrounded by many voices, but the ones that remain are clear. This is what happens after decisive days. Life simplifies. Scripture speaks to this kind of completion not as an ending, but as a continuation that can be trusted. The Apostle Paul wrote in the letter to the Philippians, chapter 1, verse 6, "He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus." Completion does not mean you have arrived. It means you are no longer fragmented. What began as awareness became alignment. Alignment became decision. Decision became direction. And direction, over time, becomes stability. This is the hope many people overlook. God does not initiate change and then abandon it halfway. What you responded to during those days is still working quietly, shaping your steps, steadying your pace, forming your future beneath the surface. You may not feel extraordinary, but you are established, and establishment changes how you move. You don't rush, you don't shout, you don't compete for attention. You measure carefully, you build patiently. You understand that depth is formed by returning again and again to what is true. There is beauty here. The beauty of someone who can wait without losing faith. The beauty of someone who can say no without guilt. The beauty of someone who carries peace that does not depend on circumstances. This kind of life becomes a refuge, not because you have answers, but because you have clarity. And here, at the close, a gentle invitation appears once more. Not as instruction, as imagery. Some people mark moments like this by placing a quiet stone on the ground not to be seen, but to remember this was a turning point, a simple mark, pressed without words, saying, "I acknowledge what happened here." Others choose to lift a small lamp and leave it burning behind them. They don't know who will see it. They simply trust that light, once shared, knows where to go. Some leave a few written words, nothing polished, nothing loud, just enough to anchor the truth they recognized, so it doesn't fade when life grows busy again. And some decide to remain near, to return, to walk this long road with continuity rather than isolation, the way one keeps coming back to a well that gives clear water. None of these gestures are demanded. They are chosen, voluntary, meaningful, beautiful. They are responses of recognition, not obligation. So if this journey through the days has steadied you, if something in you feels quieter, clearer, more grounded, you may choose to acknowledge it in your own way. Some quietly press a mark of remembrance. Some gently pass the light forward. Some leave a few anchoring words behind. And some stay close, returning again because growth flourishes in proximity, not because they were told to, but because clarity is something worth tending. February has passed, but what was formed remains. You are no longer circling questions. You are walking with direction. And those who walk with direction do not need to announce where they are going. Their steps already reveal it. Let what began continue. Let what aligned remain steady. Let what was built endure. And if you choose to walk this path alongside others, listening, sharing, returning, it will never be because you were pushed. It will be because you recognized the quiet beauty of a life set in order, and you chose to keep walking. Before this truly ends, let it remain open, because what matters most was never the words themselves, but what they stirred inside you. If something here was useful, if it steadied you, clarified you, or helped you breathe a little deeper, you may choose to let it travel beyond you, not as noise, not as persuasion, simply as a quiet offering passed along to someone who might be standing where you once stood, unsure why their heart felt restless but hopeful that meaning still existed. And if you choose not to share it, that is just as honorable. You may decide instead to keep what touched you, to hold onto a sentence, an image, a moment of recognition, to carry it into your next conversation, your next decision, your next quiet morning. Some truths are not meant to be broadcast, they are meant to be lived. This is not a message that demands agreement. It does not require affirmation. It only asks honesty. Take what resonates. Release what doesn't. Let what remains work slowly, gently, in its own time. There is no pressure to respond, no obligation to act publicly. Growth often happens privately first. Seeds settle in silence before they ever break the surface. So wherever you are after listening, whether thoughtful, unsettled, encouraged, or simply quiet, know this: the value of a moment is not measured by what you do with it online, but by what it changes within you. If you walk away carrying more clarity, more patience, or even just a better question than before, then something meaningful has already happened. And if all you do is pause today, pause before reacting, pause before delaying, pause before forgetting what you felt, then that is enough. This ends here. What continues is up to you.